We typically have a format on this show, but I'm feeling particularly mean today. So I want you to start with your notes that you didn't bring.
Okay.
Fucking it up.
Okay, so first off, in the beginning of the movie, I was seeing Wakanda, and I'm like, apparently this civilization tries not to interfere with the outside world at all. I had to put my sense of suspense of disbelief on hold. Because not only is there a massive city in a holographic dome, which cannot be seen, but also none of the aliens creatures would have come to this world, or anyone else seems to know about it also. Because literally Loki tried to take over the world, but then like all the expeditions from the past into Africa, and they still didn't discover this one area, open field. I'm like, I had to put my sense of disbelief on that because it's all fantasy and stuff. That was like, okay, this is fantasy. But I'm like, it's kind of silly, I thought, in the beginning. Second off, I was like, oh, they have internal politics too in the first scene of the movie with thing. Then I was surprised that they actually went with like him being radical, the father of the main villain, basically.
Oh, okay.
But from what I saw, he's thinking like what he thought is not usually how revolutions actually go in most things. Yes, some people support them, but most revolutions actually is when the military turns on the main government, which throughout history that's what's happened. And most of the time when this happens, what he's planning leads to more infighting and hatred, because it usually doesn't work that way. But I digress. There are people like that in the real world. I could believe it. And I was thinking more logically, like from history, what I've read. Because I'm a history nut. Then the main scene comes out when they leave the kid behind. I'm like, that's... And like, oh, they're isolationist society. I immediately thought about that. Because that is what most countries who wanted to be isolationist societies in the world acted like. But most of the time didn't have spies. So I was like, oh, that's interesting. They showed some of the consequences of that, but not all of the consequences of like when you're trying to be isolationist with the rest of the world. But that's besides the point. Everything seems fine beginning. Trial by combat when that scene comes up. I thought that was very silly for an advanced society.
Really?
Yes. I did find it silly, but I know it's happened in the past, and I could believe it a little if it happened. Trial by combat actually has a reason why it's been kind of phased out. Because not always the best leaders are the strongest. Not physically strongest, I should say. Sometimes the physically strongest leaders are not the best at it. Even though they were physically strong, in like the beginnings, they were not, well, I wouldn't say not mentally strong, because it takes a lot of work to be like physically battles and stuff.
Yeah.
But leading in peace times is not always the best. That's why there's like generals for like combat, and they're separated into two different things. Then we meet Killmonger, I think, after a while.
It depends on how far you're jumping ahead.
Am I forgetting something?
There's quite a few things you're forgetting.
Well,
I don't know how far you're jumping ahead.
I'm jumping ahead to the terrorist, I think. First terrorist of Wakanda.
The museum?
Yeah, the museum.
Okay, yeah, we meet Killmonger.
Yep, Killmonger. He's talking about, like, do you think they got a fair trade and everything like that? Mm-hmm. I was thinking about history, because I've studied a lot of history. Mm-hmm. That's not 100% representative of it. It actually might have been given by gift, because actually, you might be surprised by this, but Europeans actually didn't invade too much of Africa sometimes.
All right.
Well, without the civilians' help.
Okay.
Not with the civilians' help. The civilians' help actually got most of their slaves.
Okay.
Yeah, civilians' help. Not with the civilians' help. They didn't have as major force, Because Britain is actually compared to the rest of the world, a small part. And that was like the biggest country.
I was about to say, you were about to get this podcast taken down.
Not like that. Britain didn't have as many people. Their biggest power of Great Britain was their navy and their ability to put people against each other. Sorry, I was too loud. Because they were very, very good at it. Mm-hmm. Everyone got angry. And I'm pretty sure you can recognize that today. Like, getting people angry is a very powerful tool. Mm. And if they couldn't, they used their navy to absolutely screw everything over. They most likely were given that as I'm more accurate, they were given that as a gift, I would think more accurately. But this is Mrs. Marvel, and they have different history than normal. So maybe it's a little different.
I'm going to have to put... There's several things that I wish to talk about that you have brought up. And I need a pen. Give me a minute.
Okay. But part of those would be... But the stolen things, I could believe some things were stolen. Wakanda weapon thing. So, but it wasn't found in Wakanda. My question is, why didn't they try to get it back before, during that?
I've also had that question.
Because it's literally sitting in a museum. You are technically a country. You do have some negotiating power with it. If you can prove it, of course. People complain about, like, other countries having artists for other things. But most of the time, they allow it, basically, countries. Sometimes, actually.
Explain what you mean by that.
Some countries don't care enough to get them. Some countries do. But I haven't seen too many countries fight back against, like, when Britain has artifacts from different cultures.
Oh, yeah.
They don't... If they really want to, people throw fits. Like, some countries throw fits about it. But I do understand, like, if it's past, it's very important to you. You might feel a little jaded about it, but you might need the government to agree with you, and that's a little more for anything that has to be done about those historical. But my main concern is that he immediately shot up the place after that, with help with someone. He, like, killed all the guards and the lady.
I mean, that was mostly Claw.
That
was doing the shooting.
Yeah. But, like, they obviously work together on that. Mm-hmm. So you're getting back a stolen artifact by stealing it again, which I found...
Oh, I do want to interrupt you here because, I mean, that wasn't actually his goal. He's upset, obviously, but his goal isn't, like, to return it to the people. No, he's trying to sell it.
Yeah, he's trying to sell it, I know. So it's like, he's not a...
Yeah, he's the villain.
Yeah, it's very obvious that he made a good guy. His goals, I'm going to put a pin on that because I'm trying to avoid them personally.
Nope, go for it. It's
okay.
Literally Black Panther.
Yep. He literally wants to become the next Black Panther by taking out the current leader. The current Black Panther's father killed Killmonger's father, left him, and he wants to start a war with people he thinks are oppressed. I think kind of wants to start a race war, I think? Or...
I don't know if race war is the term I would use, but I do plan to get into that.
I didn't understand 100%, like, is it just people he thinks are oppressed? Or is it just certain?
I'll get into that. I think I can explain it a lot better.
Yeah, because I couldn't understand, basically, everything he was after. But because I didn't want to pause in the middle of the movie when I was writing down notes.
Oh, no, go for it. If you ever need to pause, because I pause all the time.
So that's why I didn't understand it 100%. Then he actually beats the Black Panther when I was like, honestly, from Trial by Combat. This is partly why it was, like, kind of thrown to the side throughout some history. He takes over his family flees to another kingdom. Well, not kingdom, I guess. Tribe? Not tribe. That doesn't make sense. City? What do they call them again? Clan?
I believe it's tribes. You're talking about the Jabari?
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe they're tribes.
They start getting ready for weapons. By writing weapons to set up people they
plan to arm.
Which I find, like, well, that's going to get rid of all the Wakanda, like, well, hidden. And if any of them die, all of a sudden vibranium is going to be found. I'm like, this isn't the smartest plan. Honestly, I don't think it's the smartest plan.
I got you.
Somehow Black Panther survives from the fall. I was thinking about realistically, but I'm like, okay,
Bro, it's a superhero movie.
Yeah, I had
throw that word out the window.
Yeah, I had to. I don't know why. I heard someone say Black Panther can be so realistic sometimes, and I'm like, okay.
In certain ways, yeah, actually.
Yeah, in certain ways, yeah. So I was like looking at it super like, what are realistic, what is not.
Although I guess to be fair, he did fall in water.
Yeah.
So it's not.
Oh no, water is actually can be more deadly than solid concrete from certain heights.
From certain heights, sure, but
no, water is. I can't.
You're much more likely to survive hitting water than you are pavement.
True. Where was I? Going to the thing.
So at the moment, I guess in the movie, we're sending weapons out to start wars.
Yep. Sending weapons out to start wars. He's revealed to be alive, like after destroying a ship for one of the things that we're sending in. Mm-hmm. Black Panther. Killmonger sends his army sends like one of his allies after him. After saying, "That's all done now. I'm the king." And like, wouldn't they be forced to if they're doing trial by combat rules? And I was thinking like, if the trial by combat didn't end, and if like one side still didn't agree with it, the other side would fight. Obviously, I was not surprised that all 5 tribes were not there, because that would cause a major political problem. If he's revealed to be alive, that's like, from what I understand of their politics, basically, like trial by combat still a big thing. But he does send it out. Some of them team up, and then one person doesn't. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention Agent Carter. Agent Carter was brought in after he got shot to be healed. He didn't want him to die, and he didn't want to stand back when they couldn't heal him. That's why he's there when he helps shoot down the ships for sending vibranium to other countries.
I like how the white guy is the only name you could remember.
I can remember some of the names, but I don't. But I can only remember Agent Carter because I remember him from other movies.
Mm-hmm. All right, I'm not trying to give you shit. It's just a funny observation.
I'm sorry. I don't want to. Someone's gonna point that out in the comments.
I mean, at the moment we have no audience, so you're safe for a while.
No, someone's gonna be mad at me. I can't remember names. T'Challa, I think, is one.
T'Challa is the main character.
Yeah,
Black Panther.
Black Panther, yeah, T'Challa. I should just say T'Challa. T'Challa fights Killmonger. I don't remember his real name because I didn't hear his name enough, and I'm terrible at names. T'Challa has a fight with him after his sister and the warrior ladies with the spears, and I'm surprised none of them have lasers, because that would be so cool. Like his movie logic, everything cool passes. That would be like really cool, I thought.
I think they do have lasers. They're like sonic lasers or something like that.
At first, I thought the cape shields were dumb, but then I'm like, I'm pretty sure people would do that if they could. So I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. When I saw Killmonger's death scene, I had to wonder, how does he live in the next movie?
I don't think he does. Does he come back?
I think so, yeah.
Does he?
Yeah. I had like, how? Seems like a pretty final scene.
That sounds wild.
Yeah. They better have a good explanation. I like how T'Challa still tries to bring him back, even then, because it's always good to try to keep doors open. But
he's not listed in the cast at all.
Oh, maybe I just misheard.
People speculated that he was going to come back because now that the actual Black Panther, Chadwick Boseman, is dead, they figured, oh, well, this would be a great redemption. We'll start to a redemption arc or something. And also, people liked Killmonger's character more than they did Black Panther, but we'll get into that as well.
End of the movie, everything being all right. I think I'm forgetting one of my part of my notes, but I can't remember.
Hold on to that for 1 second. Let me start by doing what we typically get into every episode. What do you know about Black Panther?
I knew a little about him beforehand.
Mm-hmm.
I know he was like a big hero. I've seen some of his powers. I think the kinetic energy shoot thing was made beforehand. It was just taken from the comics. People really like Black Panther in like the comics and a lot of things from his original appearance. I don't know if he has had a comic in a while.
I don't know if he's had any like current runs, but he has had something recently.
Oh, something recently?
Relatively recently.
Oh.
Like within the decade.
Oh, I was not thinking decade, like recently.
Oh, okay.
Like recently. I think they stopped Black Panther comics for a little bit.
Alright. Black Panther, pretty sure he is the first black superhero in comics. Like positioned in the actual like hero role.
Really?
Yes.
I thought that was something before this. I think there is actually something technically before that. I've heard, but I cannot remember the name for the life of me. But I heard from someone who I watched, like, that's not true. Actually, there was actually someone beforehand. I think, but I can't remember her name. Or was it a her or him? I can't remember. Someone was actually before that.
Sounds. I mean, if you can figure that out, sure, let me know.
I'll let you know. I'll find it.
Believe this was the first black superhero to be put in like the actual hero role, created because I believe it was like Jack Kirby and Stan Lee were like, there's no black superheroes, and we actually do have quite a bit of black readers, and we want our like characters to reflect the people of today, which does include black people. So why don't we just make a black superhero? It turns out Marvel has actually been rather woke for quite a while.
I honestly don't care as long as he's a good character.
I can never pronounce his first name correctly. Things like Ulysses Claw? Anything about him?
Ulysses Claw. I think it was an artifact.
Claw is the guy he's the Australian guy.
Oh. No, I did not know.
The guy with the robotic hand.
Oh, that guy. No. I didn't know. I thought he was an original character.
Oh, okay. No, he's not. So, you know how every hero kind of has their villain?
Yeah.
They're not exactly like their villain specifically, like only theirs. But like Hulk has the Abomination. Abomination really is only important to the Hulk. So that's what Claw is. Claw is like one of Black Panther's villains. And he gets killed off really quickly in this movie.
Oh, God. Yeah, he did.
I don't think I did a wiki skim to see if Killmonger was actually a real character. But
I think, no, he is definitely.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't do any wiki skim on him. Do you know anything about him?
I know a little about him.
Okay.
But not enough to, like, fill a bio. Okay. But I know him buying Black Panther for the throne, I think, is not original.
Oh, okay.
It has happened, I think, once at least before. I know once. But other than that, I was not an avid comic reader, I'll be honest. Before, well, rather recently, actually. And I'm still, like, way behind.
I hope that they bring Michael B. Jordan back to play, like, Bishop or somebody. Especially in the movie. He literally looks like Bishop.
I don't think they'll bring him back in a Marvel movie because I don't think they recast characters.
They have, actually.
Oh, well, they have done it before in Iron Man and stuff.
No, not just Iron Man. Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness.
Well, that was the multiverse thing.
Well, yeah, but if they're going to be bringing X-Men in, I imagine they're going to be bringing multiverse stuff in, and we're in the multiverse arc, so. Which
is why I'm curious how this is going to end, because the multiverse is a big can of worms you have to bring in. And they already said at the beginning they were just seeing what they can have for fun at the first. So, like, but for this big franchise, I'm worried, like, how can they pull it off?
There's so many things I want to start with. But first, I should mention, so I saw this movie in theaters. And I saw it here, actually. In this very town that we reside in.
Nice.
With a couple of my white friends who played D&D with me.
Oh.
Yes. And I remember, we got out of the theater to talk about the movie. There was something at the back of their minds that they just didn't want to say. Probably because I'm black. Oh, I should also mention, I am black. Helping Hand is white. Which may inform some context into our responses to this movie. At first, I attributed their general, because they did like the movie, or at least they said as much. They did mention like this general like discomfort in something. They just didn't mention what. At first, I attributed it to white guilt. Now I'm not too sure. What do you know about Afrofuturism? I can't imagine you would, but like if you want to, like,
I've heard of it, but I've not looked into it because I generally had no idea.
Oh yeah, Afrofuturism it's a setting mostly in a la vein of like cyberpunk, solarpunk, things like that.
Oh, cyberpunk. I know about cyberpunk.
It's a setting in the vein of something like that. Afrofuturism is the idea of what if we didn't strip Africa of all its resources and allowed them to actually prosper? What would it look like in the future? And this movie, as you can see, this movie obviously takes huge inspirations from things like that.
Oh, that's what it is.
And some important things of Afrofuturism is that they don't just completely abandon traditions. They don't just completely abandon their cultures for the pursuit of technology and advancement and things like that. They hold on to some things of themselves because, that's them. Their culture is what allows them to survive. So, with that, I want to jump over to something you mentioned about trial by combat.
Is that a common thing? I didn't know that.
I don't know if Afrofuturism is common, but it is common.
Not Afrofuturism, like trial by combat. Like, was that common back? Was that common?
I don't think it is actually common, but for what I want to say about it, I can actually believe it in the context of this movie. Here's why. So when you become king, or at least as has been shown to us, when you become king, you also become the Black Panther. Black Panther is kind of like this hero figure who is supposed to go out and fight and things like that. It says a lot about you if you need to be Black Panther to fight. You must be able to fight without this Black Panther, because otherwise, why do you deserve to be this Black Panther?
Oh.
Yes, that is why I can believe that they're having trial by combat. And also because you don't have to kill your opponent, you just have to make them yield.
Yeah, but I'm like, I could see trial by combat without the killing, without like an option to kill. Like, you not yield, but like knock them unconscious or something.
Yes.
But that's what I see, like, it evolving into. I don't expect like people to drop everything in the past, but I expect like death. Death is always like a final thing, and humanity is known to fear, like everyone, like a lot of people fear death.
But yeah, in the context of this movie, yes, I completely understand why they're doing trial by combat. Though to be fair to you, no, trial by combat doesn't make too much sense in like a futuristic society. Speaking of which, as for why they have remained hidden, they are, I don't know if you've seen that technology. Dude, they're on like some 3008 shit.
I see that technology, yes. But like when I see the technology, I'm just thinking of, maybe I was just because I'm read too much science. Because radar bounces off waves off things. Yeah. So I'm like, how do you avoid radar? And
that tech.
Yeah.
It's far more advanced than stuff that Iron Man has produced. And Iron Man has been able to avoid all kinds of radars and things like that. I can imagine that they've developed something.
Yeah, I know. I know Iron Man can use it in flares. I'm just like, because that flares are kind of a thing. But I'm like, I just like was surprised, but I probably should have expected it. My brain just went to like current day science. Yeah. So I'm like, this.
Well, Afrofuturism.
Yep.
I love the design of, or actually, were you going to say something?
No.
All right. I love the design of Wakanda as well. There's a few things I think I noticed that are directly ripped from, New York? But other than that...
Oh, they directly ripped some things from New York?
I'm pretty sure I saw Stark's tower.
You did?
Yes.
They had Stark's tower?
Yeah, like when they were doing like that flyover.
Oh, I saw that. I saw like, I thought I saw like some buildings that looked like...
Oh yeah, no, there's also like some very like skyscraper New York buildings.
Yeah,
and things like that.
Yeah, that part, I forgot to mention that. That was in my notes. If you're making a new society of advanced tech, maybe not reuse assets.
Yeah. Seems kind of wild. They, like, down to the shape of the tower and everything. But oh well. But other than that, I love the design of the city.
When that thing happened, I was like, don't use assets for your futuristic cities.
What I also love about the city is that it's not completely tech. I don't know if you know too much about something like solarpunk, which is also a setting.
I know about solarpunk, yes. Solarpunk, like, technology combined with nature.
Solarpunk is basically cyberpunk, but what if instead technology was used to aid humanity? It's more whereas cyberpunk is pessimistic, solarpunk is optimistic. Something important about both solarpunk and Afrofuturism is that you don't need technology for everything. So the market kind of area isn't just this automated mess. You actually have to go walk over to the stall where they're selling the food and the clothes and things like that. Although you probably could make that more optimized with technology, you don't need to.
Yeah. Maybe it's just American in me, but...
Oh, yes, it is definitely. So, there are other countries that have, well, not things like this, but I think it's like the Netherlands that has entire cities where you can't drive cars. You have to walk everywhere. Speaking of political drama, this movie is a political drama.
Oh yeah, definitely. I don't care as long as it's good.
Well, I mean, not in, like, Twitter politics, I guess. As in, literally, there's different political groups within this country that are fighting, kind of, at the moment. Politically. So, although, of course, it is a Marvel movie, so you need to have your action and explosions and things like that.
Explosions, definitely.
I do kind of wish they would lean more into the political tension within this Wakanda nation. From what I hear, that's more of what they do in the second movie, Wakanda Forever. I guess I'll have to see that, though.
I heard it still have the action, though.
Yeah, because it's still got to be a Marvel movie. From what I hear, there is just those moments of people just talking, which is great. I would love to see some more of that.
This is just enough for me.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because I like complicated plots, yes. But when I go into political dramas, I sometimes get bored.
You're not a fan of them?
No. I just get bored in the middle of it because I like lore expanding things like how cities work and stuff. But you have to keep it within the plot, basically. I've seen some things like, the movie things. Like, so everything has to be important.
Yeah.
Some political dramas I've watched are not everything's important to the plot. And that kind of killed the movie from, when is this going to come up? It never comes up again. And that, kills it. So as long as it doesn't do that, I'm fine.
I've gotten rid of this one. Technically this one. I forgot what I wanted to say for this one. You mentioned that the Marvel Cinematic Universe has a different history than current world.
Yeah.
Alright. I'm not too sure how different it is, though.
Really?
Yes. So obviously, having superheroes changes quite a bit. Yeah. And Captain America fighting Nazis is not something that ever happened. It would definitely change the course of history. But outside of that, they seem to be sticking to regular history as much as possible, which raises quite a few questions that we will also be getting into pretty soon, but later. Alright, I want to get into the black part of this podcast. There's so many things that are going to fly over your head because you are not black. I guarantee it.
Okay.
The Jabari tribe in general, and their representation of, traditional black masculinity, things like that, I have a feeling is not something you would have taken into account when watching this movie. Unless you want to surprise me real quick.
You mean the joking and he's like...
No, that's a cool character thing.
Yeah.
But the representation of, what it means to be a black man. What you're supposed to be as a black man. Things like that. There's so many things I would love to get into in this movie. The problem is, you just aren't black. And that sucks. But I'm going to do my best to try and navigate this. These people are separationists.
Yep.
Something that... There's a lot of coded metaphors in this movie as well. I can't imagine you would have heard about this. There is a general stereotypical sentiment among African people that come to the United States that typically don't like black people, as in American black people. It's, all the tropes. They're lazy, they don't want to work, things like that. This movie does a pretty good job at showing the kind of nuances between them. So if you go to Wakanda, they're separationists and they kind of have to maintain a low profile, but they're surrounded by black people, only black people actually. They're living in a relatively well-off nation, and they don't have to deal with anyone they don't want to. Any of the stereotypes that they have amongst them are just whatever they have created. There's no these type of people are this way, or these type of people are that way, with the exception of the Japari tribe. But they don't really... They're even more separationist than Wakanda Maine.
Yeah.
Whereas you then go to the United States, and the first thing we see is there's a bunch of black kids playing basketball, and they don't even have a hoop. That's how poor they are. I think I saw one white kid there. There's a specific line when Killmonger goes to the astral plane that highlights this nuance very well as some of the motivations for Killmonger himself. His dad, well, first off, they have him revert back to him being young and show his dad being young as well, because that's when he died. No tears for me? And do you remember what Killmonger's response was? Actually,
there's no use crying over it. Everyone dies.
Yes, everyone dies around here. That's just kind of the norm out here. And unfortunately, that's a lot more real than I think most people realize. I have the privilege to have grown up in a relatively well-off family, but I did grow up in a broken home, and after eventually going with my mother, I did get to go see what being in poverty is like. Good Lord, that is something worth fighting for. There's so much I want to get into, but one, it would make this podcast a lot longer than it is, and two, it's just something that you would have to see. It's kind of hard to just talk about. The biggest problem with help people in poverty is that it is mostly a systemic issue. But go back to Killmonger for a second. So I've seen poverty, and I've seen like the kind of effect it has on people, and yeah, that's kind of real. Like the people, I don't say they don't fear death, but there's some of the kind of people who, if they heard their cousin died, they may not cry. It's really sad actually, because yeah, somebody died. Oh, it's another month. It's like that kind of place. Like, oh, I couldn't afford my medical bills, or he couldn't afford his medical bills, or he, gang violence, or the police got to him. That kind of place. I bring that up because it invokes a certain type of mentality. Before I jump into that, I ask you to keep something in mind in Discord at least. What are your thoughts?
On Killmonger's motivation?
Mm-hmm.
From what I hear, I understand that he went through a lot and he wants to help people and try to fight for them. But I think he's going about it like he's just continuing his father's work, and even then it's not the best. I think, as I said before, not the best thought out, because as soon as someone gets vibrating weapons from them, welcome to next arm race. And that's not going to solve anything because
there is a few standout moments that help paint Killmonger's motivations. So, first off, back to the ancestral plane. There's another moment in there where his father kind of realizes, what have I done? So, like you mentioned, he's continuing his father's work.
Yeah.
Yes. And then his father also realizes, or at least appears to have realized, I've messed up. I've completely screwed up. And now I've created you, who is also continuing my screw up. 2, there is a saying, unfortunately, the audience is a bit too white for this one. So you're going to have to replace some words on your own. You can take a man out of the hood, but you can't take the hood out of a man.
Oh, I think that basically means you cannot... How do I explain this?
Oh, are you sure you want to go for this, or you want to just let me, the black person, do it?
You can do it.
Okay, alright.
You can do it. I'll go over what I think, but I don't want to get messed up.
Alright.
I was just thinking, the experiences will forever change you, basically, what I thought.
You're on the right track. Yeah.
And I wanted to explain it in better words, but that's hard to explain because...
There has been both studies done and just real life experiences, observable experiences. You take someone from poverty immediately into a place where they're rather well off. They don't behave the way that you would expect them to. They still cling on to past habits and things like that are entirely self-destructive. Maybe they don't need to do that anymore. The problem is, that's all they've known. Once again, we get back to when Killmonger gets to the astral plane. Actually, no, contrast that with how when T'Challa gets to the astral plane. He gets to the astral plane, T'Challa, and it's basically African heaven. It's literally the savannah. All his ancestors are there. It's bright and colorful and pretty.
Yeah.
It's great. Killmonger gets to the astral plane, and it's just his old apartment, because that's all he's known. That's it. It's not pretty. His dad is there, but there's nothing fantastical about it. It's his apartment on a fateful day, and that's rather depressing. It is that mentality that kind of informs his decisions. He's grown up his entire life having to fight without a father as well, for most of his life at least. Having to fight for everything, living in poverty. He hasn't had that experience of living like a king in a futuristic nation that doesn't have to worry about anything else. He doesn't come from a place of privilege like T'Challa does. He comes from a place of poverty, where everything he's gotten, he's had to fight quite hard for. That kind of mentality has kind of carried through with him to his entire life. It also makes it sort of understandable when he finally does become king. Or also, it's also super easy to see why he won that fight. Whereas T'Challa has been fighting because he's been trained to be a Black Panther, Killmonger's been fighting because he's had to live. But
well, I have other things like it's like martial arts. I guess you could have gone, but that training.
Oh yeah, he's also CIA.
Yeah, CIA. He also has a mark every time he kills someone. Apparently,
he's killed quite a lot of people too.
I just have a question: what type of kills? Because there's a lot of different ways people can die, which is kind of sad.
So anyway, back to Killmonger again. It also makes it very understandable for when he finally does become king and he gets the power. He basically calls everybody out for their shortcomings. You've been living comfortable this entire time, whereas people like me, we've had to struggle this entire time. I will have to circle back to that in a second, but he finally gets the power and he's like, you know what? Away with this system. The system is stupid. Burn it down. Quite literally, in some instances. Burn it down. New plan going forward. Things are going to change. People aren't going to live like I have. Although, people like me are not going to live like I have. There's some common criticisms of both T'Challa and Killmonger. First off, what do you think of Killmonger as a villain?
Well, as a villain, he comes to an understandable place. But you're still burning down someone's, a belief, a
traditions,
yes. Even though you feel like some traditions haven't helped you in any way, it's still
they've helped no one but themselves.
It's still another tradition. When you burn down someone else's traditions, you're gonna cause those people to fight against you, and then they'll try to go back at you, and it's kind of like a vicious cycle. And from what I've read in history, well, main reason is when someone tries to understand the other one, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but sometimes it can help other things. But sometimes that's not 100% the answer. That's why everything is so complicated. But just burning everything down, even though it's understandable, it's not right. Because this doesn't tell something the way they're using it doesn't mean the way you're using it's not helping you now. Doesn't mean it can't help other people later. You have to think about it. It's helping them in that kingdom a long time.
What do you think of T'Challa as a hero?
T'Challa, standard.
Alright.
Standard and standard as much as you can in this type of movie.
There's two things that are prevailing online. T'Challa is a boring hero that wants nothing. And I agree with this other part. Killmonger is the best villain, or one of the best villains that Marvel has created. Obviously, Thanos and things like that are a bit better than that. But I personally think Killmonger is one of the best heroes that Marvel has created. The problem with Killmonger is that he's actually kind of right. There's so many things that he's objectively correct about. But they did this Marvel thing of, oh wait, the villain is right? Alright, well how do we make the audience not like him? I got an idea. He's gonna start killing people for no reason. There it is. We screwed up. We made this villain actually correct. How do we make him not correct?
So I'm thinking about, are you thinking about the Wakanda, how they were, not doing anything, and...
So, that would be more with T'Challa. Killmonger wants to help oppress people around the world. Sounds like a great idea. So, he decides in order to do that, we need to kill a bunch of people. This is not a great idea.
No. Killing... Yeah, that part is, helping oppress people around the world sounds good, but you shouldn't just start shooting everything.
Although, I guess a counterpoint to my own argument, they could be setting him up to be a black supremacist. I don't know if you've seen any black supremacists in your day. I can't imagine you would out here. I have. They're not quite Killmonger, but they're on the same vein. Killmonger would be like a baby black supremacist.
I've heard of some of these people, and I've seen...
I've met some.
I've seen. I've not met them face to face. I don't think they would want to meet me, so that's probably
why. I can't imagine. I can't imagine you would be here if you met them.
No. I've seen them. I have not met them because they would not. no, they don't care about me. So, from what I've seen, they generally just believe they're superior, basically.
Yeah.
And I'm like, my point of view is like, we're all human. We all just have different cultural and experiences, but we're all still human.
Helping Hand has decided once again to become everybody in the world.
I'm not. No. No. I wouldn't be able to say. We're just all human, so it's mainly just how we're raised and our general.
You don't have to like justify it to me. I get it.
I know, I get it. I'm just trying to think how to put this in the audience perspective.
I have an idea. Don't.
Okay.
All right. While we're on the topic of oppressed people, though, for why people agree so much with Killmonger, have you heard of the story of Haiti? You are a history buff.
Haiti? Oh, you mean Hawaii?
No, Haiti, the country.
Oh, I've heard a little bit of history of Haiti.
All right, what do you know about it?
I don't.
Nope. It's Black Panther.
Haiti was invaded by Britain, I think, or was it
France?
France. Oh, okay, I haven't looked too much into it, but yeah, and it was. I think they enslaved some people.
They enslaved quite a lot of people.
Yeah, I think Haiti actually fought back.
They did,
and they actually won.
They did,
and and they freed themselves.
They did,
and it was like a big deal back then.
But here's the kicker. Do you know about the kicker?
No.
So, as terms of their freedom, France said, all right, we're going to end the war, but you have to pay us back for lost property, which is you guys. Since you guys are no longer our property, you have to pay us for not being our property. But in order to pay us, you have to go through this bank that we in the United States have set up, which is going to charge you a lot more than what it would normally be. I believe they finished paying them back within the last 15 years, which is crazy because that means for what? Since before we've been alive, Haiti has been paying France for freeing themselves from being their slaves. That is the kind of thing that Killmonger fights for. Things like that, the Congo, other African nations in general, actually. I can imagine there's probably some more still out there because there's still some other like African nations that are kind of rejecting the crown now that the queen is dead, and there isn't a whole lot of political will to go stop them from being their own country.
But mainly because they don't like the new king, and
also they want to be their own place.
Some places actually don't. Like there's this area in Africa.
Which one?
No, it switched into two countries, but like it has no resource. It never had resources very much, except for like the river right next to it. And the one part of it stayed in that. When they joined Great Britain, one part most of it left. One part stayed. That place is like a night and day difference in the game because they have to get resources and they can actually like build cities and stuff. Everything else is just sand dunes and a little bit of farmland land. It was not. The rest of Africa is doing a lot better now. There's still room to improve it, but there's always been there. But that place, it never had the resources to expand. And when Britain tried to join, it actually improved. This is like a rare occasion. And one part actually wanted to stay with the crown. I have to find what country that is.
Things like this leave a lot of implications for the current Marvel Cinematic Universe, though. We'll probably get into that in a different, much later video, though. I want to go, unless you have something else you want to add. I do want to go back to some more things that I like about this movie, though, so it's not an entire downer podcast.
Yep.
I love the way this dude fights. There's something about it. I don't know. It's very unmystical.
He basically has the fighting style of a regular person. That's basically all I can say is, like, I think there probably is martial arts mixed in there.
Yeah. But
you can actually visualize it a little more instead of just not random jet ends or flying boomerang shields.
There's something strangely realistic about the way this guy fights. He's not relying on he is relying on tech, but he's not using the tech to fight, he's using the tech to help him fight. A bit animalistic as well. Michael B. Jordan, the guy who plays Killmonger, is great in this movie. He's actually, that'd be a different podcast for a different channel. I've mentioned quite a few times about how I care about color in movies. I'm happy to say that when the African people are on screen, they let the colors rock. And they also use that for another coded metaphor of scenes of Wakanda are bright and colorful. Everything is great and happy. And then you cut to London or the United States and it's like gray and washed out. It's like awful and terrible.
I don't know if I should feel, because I don't
feel what?
Feel like offended by that, but I don't think I should.
Well, I mean, it's to aid to a metaphor of like the promised land. What Killmonger is trying to get to. He, like when he's dying, he mentioned, my father mentioned like this place was a really beautiful place. Can you believe he believed in such fairy tales? And then they go show him like the mountains, and it's beautiful and colorful and full of color and things like that. A lot of coded metaphor in this movie. Things that are going to fly over your head, like the different types of black, different stereotypes of black, and as well as like they really highlight the differences of the African man who lives in like relative privilege, whereas the guy who comes from the hood, and he talks like it too.
There's this interesting.
I did have a problem with how little this movie. T'Challa is a rather boring king that doesn't want anything, but I think they actually, for as much as people give him shit for it, I think that's actually kind of the point, or one of the points of this movie, and that he eventually does kind of change as a character. Although I'm not entirely happy with how much he changed. He bought some buildings. That's as much as we've seen. And he promised to help out more with other countries and things like that. But that's as far as we've seen as far as his outreach goes.
Well, no, at the end credits, he actually goes to like a nation thing.
Like where he goes up and speaks and talks about, hey, we're going to help out more?
Yeah.
Alright. Yeah, but like, he didn't... They leave it up to interpretation as to what he means by that. So we kind of have to go by what he has done, or what he has said he's going to do.
Yeah. He's
establishing a science division to do something. And he bought some buildings.
I guess how that can annoy you because you don't see more.
Because, I mean, when you compare that to what Wakanda has, all the resources and money that they have, that they actually have, he bought some buildings and established a science division. He didn't even fix up the buildings. He just bought them.
I know. That's the problem. I'm not defending how little they did. I'm just saying, like, what from a cultural, like, obviously from a cultural thing, this might actually seem like a good start for them.
Okay.
Because going slow instead of making sure everything's works properly before they go into the next thing.
And I don't want to harp on that too much as well, because there is a second movie, and maybe they like show what they've done up to now.
Yeah.
But it does seem just kind of miffed. Like, you didn't even fix up the building. You just bought some buildings.
You have to remember, this is a movie production. They don't exactly
have as much time as they want.
Not always. Some people were like, you have to make it on this date or else no.
Oh, okay.
So like, this is a movie production. Like, some movies have a set date. Like, not all movies are like Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness. We get reshoot after reshoot after reshoot. That one, I'm like, when I learned about how, like, oh wow, this development how did they not cancel this movie? But then I realized, oh wait, it's the Marvel Cinematic Universe. They can't cancel.
I just remembered what I wanted to mention about artifacts.
Yeah.
There actually are some groups advocating for the return of artifacts back to the rightful place. Yeah. Not just African nations as well.
Yeah.
So they are out there. They just don't have as much power as they need to actually do anything.
Yeah. Some places do that. I know that. But I don't see them very much, probably because they don't have very much power.
Yes.
And
a lot of people just don't care.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. I imagine as things get older, preserving history is going to be important.
Yeah.
To some people.
Some other people just don't care.
Do you have any other thoughts on this movie, though?
Good movie.
There was a whole bunch you wanted to get into before we started this podcast.
There was a bunch I wanted to get into, but I'm like, I think we handled it pretty well, actually.
All right.
Yeah, I just think good movie. Worried about how much it's gonna make sometimes, because the more you go into this, the more you go into money, the more you go into certain topics, the more people who don't understand those topics are not going to get it quite. And like, it's not meant for me, so they just leave. So basically what I'm saying is, this is like, I found this is a good medium because I could enjoy it and I don't understand everything. Mm-hmm. And you can enjoy it and you
understand a lot.
A lot. So that's a good medium. But if they don't show for the common audience, like people who are just kind of there, I want to see more of other countries instead of just France, Britain, and America's cultural thing. I want to see, like, there's a lot of other cultures with a lot of mythical creatures and stuff. I want to see those.
Brazil and Mexico come immediately to mind as some very shiny but unmined gems.
I would like to mine those gems, but it's hard to understand I don't understand Spanish that well.
Well, I mean, if it's a movie,
not a movie
for English, it's gonna be in English.
Not English. No, I wanted to make my own thing once.
Oh, okay.
But I didn't understand.
Oh, okay.
But I didn't
you were doing research. Okay.
Yeah, but I didn't understand enough about it that I didn't feel comfortable enough to do it. So,
I mean, out here, it might behoove you to learn Spanish. There's quite a few people, there's quite a lot more people you could talk to.
Yep. I had something else I thought of. I found something interesting. Like, we didn't see all the tribes meet up in the final battle.
We did not.
And I'm like, why not use everything you got?
Oh, that was another thing you mentioned. About how... So, the trial by combat is not done because T'Challa never yielded, and he is still alive. You may have missed it, but do you remember who Okoye is?
A little, yeah.
Bald. She's... Typically, they have at least one bald woman. Alright, they have at least one bald woman with a spear on, like, promotional material. That's typically Okoye. She's the main bald warrior lady. Yeah. She mentioned to Killmonger, hey, he's alive. Trial by combat. It's not over.
Alright.
Yes, there was some opposition.
Yeah.
But the, I think it was the merchant tribe that Ubaku is from.
Yeah.
That, because they wanted a king that would go out and, you know, be more of a warlord. So they just kind of went with Killmonger.
Yeah.
Which is why that happened. I'm not sure what happened to the other tribes.
That's what I'm concerned about, because, like, I want the other tribes.
Yeah, had to maintain the field. I don't know.
I'm like, where are the other tribes? Okay, there's 3 tribes technically in this, in the final battle. Well, Wakanda proper, the merchant tribe, and the tribe with spare any soldiers, and then spare soldiers.
So Jabari, I don't know what. I guess Wakanda proper, sure, or the King's tribe.
Yeah. And
merchants. Is it the merchants that he's part of?
Maybe. I
could have swore it was the merchants.
And then the other tribes, I'm like, where?
Someone's got to maintain the city, I guess.
Yeah, like, but they're going to, like, major possible, like, they're sending weapons off.
You know what? I can actually believe it, because I can't imagine they expected Black Panther to be there to battle them.
Yeah.
So there's not much reason to have the entire army there if we're not expecting a war.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're probably maintaining the city.
But yeah. I guess that makes sense. That was when like playing like, why is everyone use all your actors? I want to yell. I just like using all the actors basically. I actually found it very interesting with like the little mouth like extended thing, because I actually researched that, and that's actually was a common thing back in the day.
There's a lot of like African inspiration.
It wasn't just African though. It was like a lot of people did that. Like a lot of people.
Oh, anything else about this movie though?
No, I ran out of things to talk about.
All right. Well, I have some good news. We're out of the prologue. We are finally on the journey proper.
Hooray.
And the journey proper starts with a 3-parter.